So now welcome to step 3. In this step what we're going to do is we're going to talk about accompanying yourself or others. We're also going to deal with how to create an introduction, how to do an ending. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with how do you come up with an introduction to the song. Now the techniques that I'm using, these are techniques that would just be used straight up on a gig. So if I go, I got a gig tomorrow night. So when I go and play, and someone wants to do this song, this would be an introduction that I would likely play, something like this. Of course, on the spot, I'd probably do something different, but you get the point. The same concept would be applied to the gig. All right. So now what I've done is, if you go back to the reharm part 2, all right. So I would suggest you have that sheet music, out at the same time while you're going through this lesson. And that's in step 2. So reharm part 2 out of step 2. And measure 5, what I'm doing is that I'm taking just a couple of measures before that first or second ending, however you want to look at it. But basically the second ending is going to what chord? It's going to an A flat chord, right? So now I know that that A flat chord is also where we start, right? So all I got to do is I got to get to an A flat chord because that's where the song starts. So what I did is I took that pattern there. Oh, and by the way, Donna was asking me if you should play D flat major 7. I made a mistake, and since it said D flat below, I just made the chord change D flat up above. You could also do D flat major 7 and sound like this. So, I mean, it works fine. It's just the D major has a little bit more bite to it. So you could use both, but I like the D major better. Anyway. What do I got here? Ooh. All right, and then this is all as was written before, but now look at what I've done. I've added on 2 measures. So now I go to A flat, and I do this arpeggio, and I just do a simple 2-5. B flat minor to E flat 7, and now I can go to do 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 da 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 da. Now I'm in the beginning of the song. Okay, so that 2-5 always works to get you back. We know that the 5 dominant 7th chord will take us back to the 1 chord. We know also that we can add that 2 chord in front of the 5 chord, so we can make a 2, 5, 1. Okay, so B flat minor, E flat 7, A flat. If that's too much, you can just do octaves, that's fine. Or come up here and do that, okay? Okay, so the arpeggio here, let's take a look at that. Now, a lot of times students are asking me, well, what fingering do I use? Why don't you write in the fingering? Well, a couple of reasons. The big reason is that you need to learn how to do the fingering. And the second reason is it's actually not that hard. I got to kind of force you into doing it on your own. What you do is always think about your major scale. Now, if you don't know your major scales, you got to go back and learn your major scales. Have to do your major scales, okay? So a major scale for A flat would be this. In the left hand, right? Always good stuff to practice. Major scales is always a good thing to practice. So 3, 4, and then 3. So now look at what I did here. I did 5, 2, 1. Well, I know I got to get up to my thumb here, because like, how else am I going to do that? I'm not going to be able to jump up, right? So 5, 2, 1. That makes sense. But then the question is, now what do I do for the rest? E flat. Do I put my second finger there? Well, what finger would you normally play in the scale? Well, it would be what? Middle finger. And what do I do when I get to the A flat? Use your middle finger again. Okay? Because that's normally what would be in the scale. So you could take that fingering from the scale and you apply it to whatever, whatever passage you have in the song. Now chords, that's a whole different story, all right? Typically a chord, the bottom note is going to be with the thumb, and the top note is going to typically be with that pinky or maybe the 4th finger, something along those lines, all right? But when you have these arpeggio patterns or scalar patterns, this is when you just use that, you use your major scale fingering, all right? Now if I wrote that in for you, you would always see it, and then you would Never have to come up with it on your own. You never have to figure it out on your own. The other thing is that I said that there were two parts, okay? The second part is that you will not see fingering written in many arrangements, especially if you go to a gig and someone has like chord changes written out, you're not going to see any fingering. So you have to do this on your own, and normally you have to do this on the fly. You pick up a real book, it's just going to have the chords and the melody. There's no fingering. So unfortunately, it's something you got to learn, all right? So, but it's easy. It's not difficult. So again, and remember, on the B major, if that's too much of a stretch, you can always arpeggiate it, and it sounds nice. And then nice and rubato. Get your hand out of the way. Nice and rubato. And then. Okay. All right, so that is the introduction of the song. It's pretty simple. Is it the only introduction you could do? No. And remember, you could also just start on the one chord. Okay, so. And then just do a simple introduction like that. So I just did A flat major 7, and I did B flat minor 7 to E flat 7. All right. So now let's talk about an introduction. That introduction works if you're playing, if you're accompanying yourself, or if you're accompanying others. But let's talk specifically accompanying others. Now I've worked with a lot of different instrumentalists, and I've also worked with a lot of different vocalists. Now sometimes you'll work with a vocalist and they're strong. You know, they know the melody, they know the song, they know what key they sing it in. You know, they're a strong vocalist. But you'll also come across a lot of times you'll work with a vocalist and, you know, they're not as strong of a vocalist. You know, that's okay, all right? Everybody, you know, we all have our levels and that's okay. But what you got to do is now it's extra important. It's now your job. It is your job, okay? Notice I'm emphasizing those words. Your, and it's a job. You got to work at this. This is your job. You just can't say, ah, yeah, whatever, it's your fault. No, it's your job now to set up the introduction to make it so that it is easy for them to be able to come into the song. Now, first note of this song is pretty easy because it's an A flat. So what you could do is for an introduction, you could start by giving them their first note. So again, that A flat. All right, so now when you start your introduction, they can hear that da. See how I can also give that first note on the very first chord as well. So, so I can also give them that note as well. That's the first thing. So kind of giving them a note so they know, oh, that's my note. So you could say to them, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play an introduction and I'm going to give you your first note, right, on the first chord. Okay, so I'm going to hang on that note for you. So here we go. And then now they know now that that's their first note. Okay, I'm going to look at them, that's their first note. And I can just wait there for them. Then they come in, do da 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 da, and then I can go on from there. The other thing you could do is sometimes it helps to give that 5 chord, just wait on that 5 chord. So, and I just wait there, and then do 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 do. Now, in this particular song, since the melody comes in after beat 1, you would probably want to hit the 1 chord. Okay? But there are some times in which there's a little bit of a pickup to the melody. So that's where you might end on that 5 chord and just wait on that 5 chord. Now notice the chords that I'm doing here are not super complicated. You know, they're not real rich, dense. You know, they're basically simple chords. You might say, well, why are you showing me these simple chords? Well, I go through the whole piano chord series, and we can always add in tensions. We can always say, hey, let's add in our 9s. You know, let's add in sharp 11. But here's the thing. Depending on the level of singer, whether that be you or someone else, all right, it's very difficult, which you're going to see as we start to do the singing part of this lesson. Yeah, there is singing, okay? It's very difficult at times to be able to hear what notes you need in order to be able to come in with the melody properly. If the pianist is playing all these like crazy chords and you guys haven't worked together yet, you haven't worked it out, okay, it could get a little bit complicated. Now, as you get to know each other better and you work together more, or say you're the singer and you sing the song more, now you can start to add in more stuff. But I think it's always better. Always better. Start simple. Start with something that's going to get a basic sound. It's going to sound nice. It's going to sound good. No broken bones. No train wreck. You know, no one's going to get hurt. You know, it's just going to sound good. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. So keep it simple to start. Okay, and then we move on from there. All right. So when you end on that 5 chord, like say you have a song that the singer has a pickup note, a lot of times you would play that pickup note. Let's say it's this one for the E flat. You know, you'd end on that E flat chord and then kind of give them their note so they know which note to come in on. You can also sometimes play that 5 chord as an augmented chord. Now you've heard this before. That's kind of cool because that sharp 5 resolves up to the 3rd of the 1 chord. So the sharp 5 of the 5 chord, in this case it's B, resolves up to the C, which is the 3rd of the 1 chord, A flat. All right? So that's another nice little trick if you want that kind of sound. That's a cool sound as well. So we have sorry. And then you can go into do 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 da 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 da. Okay, from there. All right. So that's the introduction to song. That's one possible introduction. You could also take the last. You could do like the last 4 measures of this of the music here. What do I have here? Actually, let me go back to the reharm part 2. Well, actually, I could take these last 4 measures as well, okay? Which is measure 15. I got, what do I got? And then. All right, so a lot of times, last 4 measures of the piece, last 8 measures of the piece. The basic shell version would be. Song. Right, so that's just using the B flat minor 7, D to C minor 7, D flat to D diminished, to E flat sus, to A flat, F, B flat, E flat with your sharp 5, and then and then that can be your melody. All right, so that's the introduction. I'll see you in the next part, which is going to be the ending.